Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Lead Analyst Logan Mohtashami. Once again, we're going to talk about existing home sales and give a preview of what to expect from that Jackson Hole Fed meeting. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Optimal Blue, for making this episode possible. Logan, welcome back to the second time we are doing the podcast in person.
Yes, and I recovered from your little martial arts kick that you did. I understand after losing a lot of debates to me, you're resorted to Bruce Lee tactics, but, I'm still here.
This is in the AI-generated video that Logan did. He took the footage from this and made it AI, so it looks like I'm doing these karate moves. I wish I had those moves in real life. It was great. Okay, well, let's get to it. Existing home sales. What happened, and were you surprised?
We're not surprised. Sales beat estimates on a month-to-month and showed slight growth. For those of you that follow the tracker and have been following the podcast, one of the things we've been talking about for months now is that, we're going to have such extreme low comps really up until the month of October. So that report in November would be the last one. So if we see growth on a year-over-year basis, just kind of take it in context. And 2 months ago, it was flat year-over-year. This one beat estimates. So our tracker data is designed to be a little bit ahead of the home sale report. So it wasn't shocking to us. I thought this was a very healthy report. Price growth is cooling down. I need price growth to really cool down for my forecast to be right for 2025. But in this regard, inventory still stayed healthy. The NAR's active inventory typically peaks around June to August. So we pretty much hit the highs of the year. Our weekly fresh inventory data is now for the month of August is actually declining. Our new listings data is falling. So NAR kind of will follow backwards with us. But a healthy report considering that mortgage rates are nowhere near 6%. We had the biggest crash in home sales in 2022, and we've basically been flat. In the articles, you can see, I take existing home sales going out to decades. It's not kind of abnormal what's happening now. It's just the next leg typically is rates fall and sales move up higher. And we go all the way back to 1968 to show a lot of economic cycles regarding that.
I love hearing like you think this is a pretty healthy report given our situation, given that it's August, given that mortgage rates are where they are. And inventory.
Yeah, to me, affordability is going to get better by not rates getting down to 3 or 4%, but by wage growth, household formation. Price growth had to cool down. For price growth to cool down, you need inventory up because we had such an extreme seller's market that home prices went savagely unhealthy. But now, this is as good as you could hope for with rates of where they are. So it was not a shock to us because we've been talking about, we're going to probably see some year-over-year growth, but rates finally got below that 6.64 level. They're not heading towards 6, but much different backdrop in our tracker data that we've seen recently that'll come into the sales reports. Our weekly pending sales, those are contracts that fall into the sales reports 30 to 60 days out. So we're looking at kind of October, November, and December timeframe for some of these data lines that we're seeing currently.
Okay, we are, recording this on Thursday. Tomorrow, when this comes out, big day. That Jackson Hole meeting, we have been wondering what's going to happen here, and not because we expect, that this is not a federal open market committee meeting where they're going to raise rates. It's like, what is Powell going to say? The man is under incredible pressure. Now his Fed governors are under pressure. What do you expect?
Knowing Powell in this, he probably stays as neutral as possible. It's not shocking to me what the 10-year yield is doing. And now that the spreads are better, mortgage rates aren't as big a story in the sense of, aggressively going higher. It's been hardly moving at all. Especially, this is another week to show, the spreads kind of doing their thing. The volatility is just not there anymore. But it is interesting. Beth Hammack came out today and she said, everything's good. We don't need to cut rates. We highlighted her. Would probably be next on Trump's list. We've always had this thing, labor over inflation, right? The labor market needs to break for the Fed to really want to pivot. And jobless claims data today is slightly higher, nothing really big, but the continuing claims just hit another 3-year high. And as we talked about, manufacturing jobs are being lost, nothing spectacular. Residential construction jobs, nothing spectacular. They don't see that as a need to pivot anything more than what they've done because they believe they're closer to neutral. So again, if we had no tariffs and the labor data was a little bit firm up, we're having the same conversation. What do we do? If the jobs data was better, but the inflation data was improving, they would always highlight the labor data. And for them, unless the labor data is breaking, they're just going to hold it as restrictive as possible until then. And with Beth Hammack, she talked about playing catch up. Well, when the labor data breaks, we'll play catch up there. So her statement isn't shocking, but I think Powell, to me, stays kind of as neutral as possible. I know some people say he's got a green light to sound dovish. He doesn't come off to me as somebody that wants to be dovish in this meeting at Jackson Hole.
We're in such an unusual time when those Fed governors, what they're saying, we're like, they could have what they say could get them in the crosshairs, right? Because we reported yesterday how Fed Governor Lisa Cook was, being called on to resign over allegations of mortgage fraud, which come down to, I think, her having two primary residents listed and in the same year, which obviously she could only be living in one. So, we're not talking like some incredible kind of fraud here, but if that's true, that is something to look at. Well, I think that ratcheted up today. Right? The DOJ.
Well, I think the Department of Justice is basically telling the Federal Reserve, you need to let her go, or else, too late. We're in Dallas right now. Dak Prescott is still the quarterback, and they can't get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. So, it's there are people out there that have done more egregious things and not been fired. But I'm a 49er fan. I can't wait. I'm so happy that football season's coming up. In any case, yeah, they're using the Department of Justice tactics. That hey, you guys take a look at this. You let her go. You should let her go. They want the ball on their court to do it. It'll get kind of sloppy if the Department of Justice starts going in there, and a lot of people are just looking at this as a very, not politically driven, just ideologically driven. I need votes, right? And if Lisa Cook is gone, I can get my person in. I got more votes than Powell, and I'm neutralizing him. So look at it in that light. So the Department of Justice got involved, and this is just how Trump operates. So It's not. We should not be shocked about this. This is definitely a much more aggressive approach to everything, to tariffs, to negotiation tactics, to going after Powell, to going after Fed governors out there. I know Bostic talked today, and he was now maybe one rate cut coming in. But I think what Trump and Pulte and everyone saw is that after that jobs report, you saw a lot of Fed presidents come out there and say, we need to cut rates, and this isn't good. I think they enjoyed that aspect because it challenges Powell. But we have to be a little bit realistic on what's happening. The growth rate of inflation is picking up, and the Fed had their target at 3%. And if goods inflation starts to pick up a little bit more toward the end of the year, the Fed is just following their mandate. You would probably need to see a new Fed chairman to change that direction. That would be Christopher Waller, if you wanted to make a smart choice. But until then, what the 10-year yield and mortgage rates are doing is perfectly normal to me, considering where inflation expectations are.
What do you think the bond market reaction is going to be tomorrow, right? Because obviously there's not going to be a Fed funds rate change. What do you think the 10-year yield could do?
I still think the 10-year yield has a very hard time breaking under 418. And the only time we did it was Godzilla tariffs, and that was more market oriented. So even a very dovish Powell, I don't see that level getting broken unless he comes out and says, "Hey, listen, labor is a concern now." I mean, the backdrop is there for him to say something like that. I mean, 3 months average of 35,000
That's so bad.
I would tell you this: you're starting to get more Fed presidents talking about, well, population growth is slowing down so much that 50 to 75,000 is normal. So we talked about this before. The Fed can use that tactic as, hey, listen, it's okay at 50,000, that's fine. They can extend this, but they can't extend jobless claims. Like if that thing breaks, the bond market goes well ahead of them, and it looks like every single economic cycle that we've seen post World War II. So claims data rules all. Continuing claims is at a 3-year high again. Job growth is at the lowest. I mean, there's so many things that Powell can move. I just don't know if he'll do that. God, they had a picture of him coming into the airport. He looked old and tired and dragged out. And it'll be interesting to see how the bond market reacts to it. But we still have not been able to break under that 418 level outside of Godzilla tariffs.
And of course, I mean, the bond market could do something, get ahead of the Fed. Then by the time that the Fed actually cuts the Fed funds rate, like we had last year, then the mortgage rates actually went up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people talk about that, but it's so funny. Nobody wants to talk about mortgage rates fell 2% first before that. It's like, oh my God, rates went up. No, they went down aggressively first, and the bond market was well ahead of the Fed policy. So if the economic data gets better, manufacturing ISM data was fine today. So the flows of economic data kind of run this. The policy gives you a bandwidth of where the 10-year yield and 30-year mortgage rate is. Oh, it's going to be October soon. And you remember
Is it?
Yeah, in October, people said nobody's ever going to buy the 10-year yield at 5% because we're broke. Y'all are some sorry, crazy people. It's beautiful.
I think the reason I keep bringing up like the Fed funds rate, they lowered the Fed funds rate and the mortgage rates went up is because consumers, everybody who had to deal with consumers, whether they're mortgage people or real estate people, had to explain to consumers who all they heard was like the Fed lowered rates and my mortgage rates up.
Since we're here, in your hand.
What?
Hand here. Okay. What is a 10-year yield? Okay.
Oh, no. Come on. Okay.
It is the slow dance, right? The slow dance is back and forth.
But it could be that someone goes, no.
And that, yes, if the guy did something bad on the date, pushes it off, right? The spreads are the difference. So whatever drives the 10-year yield will drive mortgage rates. Fed policy is 65 to 75% of that. But economic data, people were flagging such a recession in 2024 that the bond market was that's why we created the Hodor line, right? We didn't think that it should break below that, and the labor data wasn't breaking. Now we're here, lower job growth than last year, and we're at 434 on the 10-year yield. So what the Fed says, what Fed policy is, does matter. What the Fed funds rate is. So the ball is up to Powell's court. He can do a lot of things with it. Being super dovish, he could easily make that claim. I just don't see that in him. I see a guy just tired and man, he just did not look good. And now one of his own people are getting threatened to be prosecuted. So there's a lot going on that's just we're not accustomed to. So, but we have to take it one day at a time. And always remember, economic data matters more than all of this. If jobless claims were at 300,000, we're not having this conversation. Bond yields are already down. Mortgage rates could even be, right at 6% today, but that's just not the case. Claims hasn't broken yet.
So, everybody who's listening to this, we will be writing up what Powell says. Specifically, Logan, you're going to be writing it up and interpreting what we should expect the Fed to do based on what he says tomorrow.
Yeah, it should be an interesting Friday. But again, as we said, from July 1st, the second half of 2025 is going to be lit. It's going to be get your popcorn out and everything. It is not disappointed. We're almost at the end of August, and we still have some time left for the end of the year. So just kind of not buckle up, man. Just get that popcorn out. It's going to be drama.
Yep. And listen to us so you know what to tell your clients, because this is crazy. I mean, you're following this not just daily, but like constantly, and things are changing all the time.
Yeah. We who had Lisa Cook being prosecuted for mortgage fraud and getting kicked out on the bucket list. We brought it up a few weeks ago that they're going to go after Fed governors, but this is, for a lot of new people, they go, whoa, can they do this? So.
Yeah, it's still, so, I mean, part of what happened today is that Lisa Cook came out yesterday with a statement and said, I am not resigning, because the first thing was like, hey, she should resign or we're going to investigate her. And she came out and was like, I'm not resigning based on an allegation in a tweet. And so that didn't work. So now they're like, hey, you should fire her. So we'll see what happens.
Looks like it's going to be another interesting weekend. Okay.
It does. Okay. Well, Logan, thank you so much for being on, and we will talk to you again soon.